Good afternoon, everybody. John Prusek here from Goer Magazine, welcoming you to another episode of Goer Live, our new weekly TV show or videocast show, I guess I should say, here on YouTube and on Facebook. We're sponsored, as always, by Arctiva, by Z1R, and by Gates Belts. We want to thank them all for their support of the show. We took last week off, frankly, because I was out at our Road Reports event, which is also called Snowshoot, testing some new snowmobiles, which is the highlight of my year. We always like to say that's Christmas and New Year's and your birthday and everything all rolled in one. So didn't get on last week, but back, refreshed, ready to hit it, putting together our spring issue of Snowgoer and having fun and talking sleds and paying attention to racing and doing all the fun things that we do this time of year. We had a big snowstorm roll through our area. Kind of caught half of our area, but they did reopen some trails in Wisconsin and stuff. So hoping to get out this weekend and have some fun. I hope you're going to get out and do the same thing. So this week we have two guests on our show, like going back to our normal format. Our first one is Mr. Nels Eide. He's the snowmobile product manager at Polaris. And we're going to ask him a bunch of questions about the 2026 Polaris snowmobiles that were unveiled just about 25 and a half hours ago. A lot of different things going on in the line that we can ask about there, from trail sleds to mountain sleds to crossovers to utility sleds, if anyone wants to ask any questions on those. Again, one of the upshots of doing this show live is that we can take questions from viewers like you. So if you hit the chat on either YouTube or on Facebook, it'll pop up on my screen when I have that screen up, and we'll be able to address anything that you want to ask. Although, I'm not going to maybe ask them the questions from people who are just trying to be mean, because we always have plenty of those. Our second guest will be Brett Richter. He's our oval racing insider, super fan guy. He was at Beauchageur last weekend to wrap up the oval racing circuit. If any of you were paying attention to that, he was the guy that was on the infield doing the pit interviews. He was doing the cut-ins, live interviews with the races, and he also wrote up a story for our website, snowgoer.com. Kind of the season wrapped up in Beauchageur, another really fun, successful, fast and exciting season on the oval racing circuit. So he can talk to us about that and the various things going on. So again, Snowgoer Live, Thursday nights, typically at 7:30, right here. We are sponsored by Arctiva, maker of a full line of snowmobile clothing and gear. They can be found at arctiva.com. We're also sponsored by their sister brand, Z1R, maker of a complete line of helmets for snowmobilers and helmets and other gear for motorcyclists. They can be found at z1r.com. And we're sponsored by Gates with their G-Force belts. They make belts for us snowmobile guys and girls. They also make them for all sorts of power sports equipment, and they can be found at gates.com. So let's really quickly, while our crowd builds, kind of recap some of the things that are going on. As I said, I was out at our Road Reports event where we were testing the new snowmobiles from Polaris, Skidoo, and Lynx. It kind of pains me a little bit to only say three names there now that we don't have Yamaha, and Arctic is in some form of a transition, but that leads naturally to the big topic that so many people are talking about, Arctic. And, Arctic is, there are some good signs on the horizon. There are some very good things going on there. Call me an optimist if you will, but I think something's going to happen in the near future, in the next 60 days. Their personnel participated in a photo shoot that the industry does. We know for sure that some could be buyers were at the factory yesterday. There's just a lot of energy behind that. Their demo rides are still going on. So don't fret, cat fans and fellow snowmobilers in general. I think we're going to keep that brand in our sport, God willing. So that'll be good. Since our last show, as I said, the oval season wrapped up, and Mr. Blaine Stevenson captured the championship in the Pro Champ class. So congratulations to him. Meanwhile, in snowcross, Emil Haar is kind of cleaning up. He built his lead the last couple of events. Sounds like Elias Ischel will be back to challenge him this coming weekend when the circuit moves to right back here to the Twin Cities, where I'm based at the ERX Motor Park. So excited to see what happens now that he'll be back. But boy, Mr. Haar is out to a big points lead. Rimshaw, the hill climb circuit, has had a couple big events that have been really exciting. On a personal note, Tim Mackey, a good friend of ours who comes out, he's often the guy in the photo shoots that you see in our magazine. He's the guy that can do the cool stuff and air out the sleds. He won his first classes ever in Rimshaw racing. So congratulations to him. I know that was a big breakthrough moment for him. He's in the seniors class now, kind of where guys like me would belong, but congratulations to Tim, certainly. And then in cross country racing, Evan Peppel won another round. This one at Nadawash. Kind of led a Polaris podium sweep up there in the Pro Factory 600 class. So a lot going on there. And then, now the other big news story of the week is now we know all the main 2026 snowmobiles that are going to be released. And with that, we can get to our first guest. So as I said, 2 weeks ago, the last time we did this, we were able to talk about the Skidoo machines with a couple of Skidoo personnel. The links information is out there as well. A lot of changes in the links line, actually. And now, as of yesterday, Polaris has unveiled their 2026 snowmobiles, and we're lucky enough to have the snowmobile product manager with us here, Mr. Nels Eide. I will pull him up on the screen, and there he is.
There we are. Thanks, John. Good. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Are we sitting in the office tonight, or is there really strange at the house?
No, this is the office. We're still here. Plenty of work to do, even though we launched yesterday.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, my favorite is people say, "God, you work in the snowmobile industry. You must get to ride all the time." It's like, yeah, no, we spend way too much time behind computers and doing different things like that. So yeah. So let's start by just telling people a little bit about you. Let's how did you get to Polaris? I understand you were. Yeah. I just learned recently that you were part of the Clean Snowmobile Challenge at one point. But let's back up. So growing up, I know you was cross country. Give us the cliff notes.
Yeah. So I grew up in northwestern Minnesota, racing cross country sleds with Arctic Cat actually, and I had a lot of fun doing that. Zach Herfindahl and Taylor Bunke are the same age as me. That's a fun fact. So I didn't win a lot. And it was a good experience, but it was time to go to school. So I went to Duluth and did the Clean Snowmobile Challenge, which is a really cool engineering design competition series for college kids. So was involved in that, learned a ton, and then Polaris hires heavily out of those different programs. So got an internship here at Polaris and have been here for 8 years, 6 years in the snow group, with roles across marketing and product, working for Marty, who had my role before he retired, and now product manager for the snow group. So love snowmobiles and excited to work with our team every day to make snowmobiles better.
So to further set the table, people hear titles, that this person has this title. What does a snowmobile product manager do? What's your role as that title?
Product management, I like to say, is different everywhere. Everybody does it a little differently from my experience. But how we do it at Polaris is we have a product manager, which is me. And then I have a team of engineering managers that I work with. So they manage the engineering projects when we go and do new programs. And I work on things like working with our customers, our dealers, understanding what they want out of their snowmobiles, what they like, what they don't like, how we can make it work financially for the business, how we can plan all the different products out to make sure that we can do it in a cadence that works for us, works for manufacturing, works for engineering, works for our dealers, and then work with our marketing and sales team to bring it to life. So we wear a lot of hats when you're a product manager at Polaris, kind of carrying something from an idea, right? We go and talk to dealers, customers about new snowmobiles. We have an idea and then kind of carry that all the way through the process till yesterday, where we launch them and send them out into the world.
And now I'm sure you just sit with your feet up until about 11 months from now and don't really do anything, right?
No, we people ask once in a while when they find out I work in the snow group. They ask what I do in the summer, and the answer is that we work on snowmobiles. So we got a lot going on. The future is bright.
I always tell people that, because I get asked the same question, and I'm like, actually, fall is our busiest time of year. That's when we're really working the long hours. We work some long hours in the winter, but we mix in a lot of fun during that time too. So that makes up for some of the long hours in the fall. But yeah, it's a full-time year-round job doing this stuff. So let's jump right into the 2026 stuff. As I kind of said in the prologue there's kind of stuff in every segment, but I want to start with the heart and soul John Prusak sled that I'm really glad you updated this year. the Indy XCR. A new rear suspension on that. Talk about how
Yeah.
long that's been in development and kind of what the goals were.
Yeah. So XCR, for 30 some years, right, has been the cross country race sled comparable that you can snow check. And it's for our most extreme riders. We spend a lot of time working with those riders. And over the last couple of years, really the last two years in particular, the feedback that we got with XCR is for some of our riders is they want more. And they were kind of coming to us asking, where do I go? What should I buy? Is there a different sled I should get? And we took that as, all right, we've got to continue to push XCR forward. The new long-tail rear suspension came from our cross-country race team. Matt Prusak and Dave Christian and some of the chassis and suspension engineers on our team work closely with the cross-country race team. They were looking for more bottom-out resistance, specifically in big holes. They wanted more bottom-out resistance, and so we developed the long-tail rear suspension geometry over there. Alex Satine and Aaron Christensen were very, very much involved in a lot of the development of that. Obviously, Alex works with us every day in his day job too. And so we've had that set up on the cross-country sled for the last 2 years. Obviously, we didn't get as much terrain time as we would have liked down here in the lower 48, just with the snow, right? The ice is just a very different setup. But we've gotten a lot of great learnings out of the Iron Dog with that rear suspension in particular. And so 2 years of learning there and brought it into XCR for 2026.
So this is a picture that was the reason I was kind of darting my face off screen here is I had to drag it into the backside of our portal here that I that have it on our website today when we were showing the new machines. So long tail involves I don't think you guys are gonna be able to see my mouse, but the way the rear torsion spring mounts. Talk about kind of what you did there and what the advantage is.
Yeah, so there's two fundamental changes with XCR when we look at the actual hard parts. So the first is what we call the long tail torsion springs. What that means is that the mount or the where the torsion spring mounts onto the rail moved forward about 6 to 8 inches. I can't remember the number exactly offhand, but quite a ways. Where it landed is the front mount for the torsion spring is actually in front of where the front torque arm mounts into the rail. What that does, the engineering term is called load share. So a coupled rear suspension, right? You've got a flat rail on the bottom and you're trying to go over something that's not flat. So anytime you can use the suspension, you have it work together better, it's going to do better over a bump, right? Because the rail can't flex. By putting the long tail torsion spring in front of the rear mount on that front torque arm, they load share together. So when you enact the front arm, it starts to enact the rear arm with it because they're now overlapping. Before, when there was a space between them, if you watch in slow motion, as it goes over a bump, it really went front torque arm, and then the front torque arm passed it to the rear scissor, and then it passed the bump. We're passing the bump right out the back. What the long tail geometry does is when that front torque arm gets a hit, right, that front arm hit as the sled goes over a bump, the torsion springs are involved right away. And so they can start to use the rear scissor to help that front torque arm not bottom out, keep the throttle on steering right, keep it in a happier zone, use the shock that we have in the back as well to help handle that bump in the front. It also works the other way, right? So a big tail hit, like a big power down landing or something like that, before it goes all through that rear scissor and it had a tendency to collapse a little bit faster than we wanted it to. What it does, again, with the load sharing is it puts some of that load back onto the front of the rail and uses that front track shock more than it otherwise would have. So that's the first big difference. The second thing that we did along with that is took the entire suspension calibration up. So XCR riders, like I said, have been pushing XCR for a long time, or have been pushing their XCRs hard. They want to keep going, do more with their XCR. So totally new suspension calibration. The torsion springs in the back are 15-pound heavier springs, so from 90s to 105s, and they're 3 degrees stronger as well. The front track shock spring is still a dual rate spring, but it gets into the heavier part of the dual much faster. And then we went from 100-pound springs in the front to 125-pound springs. With that, we redid the valving on all the shocks themselves as well. So it ends up being about 20% stiffer, specifically in the bottom of the stroke, mostly focused on bottom out. And then way better handling through bumps and chatter with that long tail. And the way the rear load shares with the core Pro CC architecture is still there.
Okay. We kind of by happenstance,
Yeah.
we got a unique opportunity to take a 25 and a 26 XCR out side by side. We inside baseball for most consumers, they don't know how snow shooting road reports works. We had a different sled checked out, and that sled ended up not being available during our time when we had the new 650 XCR. And so one of your guys, Cal, went and found the 2025 that you guys had out there and said, mind if I bring this with 2025 650 XCR? It's like, yeah, definitely bring that with. So we wound our way down by Island Park, and we found a patch where we've often done bumps testing in the past. It's this long straight stretch through some trees, never groomed, big bumps, always really wore in. And as a team, we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth through that. And it was incredible. First of all, the anti-bottoming was a big deal, but just also the entire machine just stayed more composed, probably because it wasn't bottoming, it was part of it, and the stiffer suspension. But it was incredible. On the trail, yeah, there was a difference, but boy, when we were ringing it out, that's where we really felt the difference. And I'm guessing that's what you were aiming for.
Exactly, and we knew we really had something when our cross country guys came back and actually talked about stability. The Hatteen shop is just Hatteen Heritage Racing Shop is just south of Roseau, maybe 20 miles, and they've got some classic huge Minnesota ditches that they run right out of there. And they were doing some testing down there, and Alex and Aaron and some of the guys came back, and that was the word they used, was how stable it is at speed. And they were able to go faster, and they felt like it was more stable. So that's when we knew we really had something. We fine tuned the cow for an aggressive trail rider, and we're pretty stoked with where it landed.
Yeah, we definitely worked ourselves into a good lather going back and forth through those bumps, but it was a lot of fun, but more fun certainly on the 2026 than the 2025. And for the record, we always loved the XCR 25, but now it's like, okay, yeah, just park that thing over there. Let me go back through it with this. So again, our guest is Nels Eide, or Nels Eide. I've pronounced his last name wrong for years, unfortunately. But sorry about that. But he's the snowmobile product manager from Polaris, and we're talking about the 2026 snowmobiles. We invite you guys to make comments in the chat on either Facebook or your YouTube. They'll roll up for us. So far, we've got a lot of people saying hi, so we'll wait for a good question to come in for you. But in the meantime, we'll transition to the Switchback Assault. Another staff favorite snowmobile, but I'll be honest. Whenever we've tested the crossovers out west, more than half our team has always historically preferred the Skidoo backcountry because it had the narrow front end. We'd get off in the backcountry, it'd be screwing around, and everybody's like, well, this Polaris it stays too planted back here when you're trying to tilt it up and stuff, and the Skidoo doesn't. And then you'd get on trails, and of course the Polaris would shine. Well, that's physics. That's a wide front end is going to be stable, a narrow one's going to be easier to tilt. Last year, Skidoo addressed that by having a wide backcountry XRS. This year, you're going the other direction. Talk about that decision and any unique twists in that.
Yeah, the crossover, just by definition, right? It's the hybrid between mountain and trail sleds. It's the middle, and so as mountain and trail sleds have evolved a ton over the years, and the expectation of what the riders want on those sleds has evolved, the crossover sled that kind of meanders through the middle has evolved with them. Obviously, there's a huge gap in our lineup, or we saw a gap in our lineup with Assault for the narrow Switchback Assault, or a narrow crossover sled that was better off trail. How we went about that is, from my perspective, a little more unique than maybe some other crossovers in that segment, and that we wanted to make sure that it had as much, we call it real deal off-trail performance, as it could. And so it has real RMK parts on it. We didn't just make take the trail geometry of the race front suspension or a standard wide front suspension. We could have just narrowed up the arms, sent the rest of it out the door the same, and said, hey, we got a narrow Switchback Assault, come check it out. What we did is we did the real React RMK spindles. So the raised, they're 1 inch taller than the trail spindles. They've got the off-trail geometry, a little more rake than a trail spindle does. 39 to 41 inch forged front A-arms, both upper and lower. So a complete set of forged A-arms with the forged spindle. The gripper ski, which is our well-loved mountain ski that's on all of our RMKs. And then the actual shock from a Pro RMK as well. And then we went and did the ride work specifically for Switchback Assault. So what you get with the Escape front suspension, that narrower front suspension, is more off-trail capability than you might otherwise expect from just a narrow crossover, because it's got so much RMK design and DNA in that front suspension. So where you're really going to feel it is like you were talking about, right? When you off trail, you want to initiate play, do some power turns, things like that. It's just way more playful. With the rest of the Matrix platform, it stays still pretty composed on the trail. It makes for a great trail companion for a long trail day as well. But we're excited to have both options for 26 for our Switchback assault riders.
Photo I flipped up there. I think our guy TJ was trying to show off that ski stance there, getting it up in the air. So God bless him for that. The in general, and this is a discussion that we've had trailside for years. Whenever we're evaluating the crossovers, is kind of who is the person that's buying the 50/50 crossovers. So you see the numbers. Are most of these sold in places like Michigan and Maine and Quebec, or do quite a few of them sell out west?
We see the majority of them in the Midwest and the East. And we really see it as we see two big customers with it. The first is the guys that live in Michigan and they stay in Michigan and that's where they ride, but they love when the snow gets deep.
Yeah.
And so they're willing to take a little bit of a trail trade-off when so that they have the more off-trail focus, like when the power lines fill up and they want to go ride. And we do see some that'll live in Minnesota, they ride it in Minnesota, and they got the annual trip to Togedy, and they want to have a snowmobile that's a little more capable for that trip. And so we see some of those, but it's predominantly the kind of core off-trail Midwest and East places, right? Quebec, Michigan, like you said.
All right. We're going to roll through a couple questions that are being asked on the chat here. We had one gentleman ask, Dan asked, why no tether cords on your snowmobiles? Is that just something that, well, I'll let you answer it. Why no tether cords?
Yeah. So we do have a standard tether on all of our RMKs, all of our XCRs, and then our ProStar S4, so our 4-stroke engine models all have the standard tether cord as well. It's a super easy accessory for the rest of the sleds. The harness is right there. There's basically a cutout. You just more or less plug it in. So that's what we offer right now, and obviously something we're looking at in the future, of course, is keeps evolving if that's something that goes standard. So.
Right. Okay. And then we've got a gentleman named Mike who asked, of course, people talk about that, why do you have so many snowmobiles? And then the first thing well, what about this combination? And no, I hear them because I'd be interested in it, but why no XCR 850?
Yeah. So I would say two things. One, our entire approach this year for the 2026 lineup has been very focused on our dealers and their inventory. Our first and foremost priority is a healthy business for us and for our dealers and a healthy industry. And so making sure that we manage the dealer inventory appropriately is a really big push that we have for this year, more so than it has been in the past. Reading between the lines, right? Dealers have a lot of 850s in stock. The other piece of it with XCR specifically is as we push XCR further into race-ready performance, we're pushing that sled further than it has been in the past in our lineup. Working with our customers and our dealers, we felt that the most appropriate engines for that new XCR package and its kind of updated position in the lineup is our two race-inspired 2-stroke engines, and that's our 650 and then our Patriot 9R. Both the 9R and the 650 feature the lightweight, low inertia crank train, right? The lightweight crank, lightweight flywheel. The 9R, of course, has the ported cylinders and all of the big bore stuff. And then the 650, right, being the kind of little bit more torque version of that Patriot 600 that we race in cross country. So our race-inspired engines on the race-inspired XCR with, like I said, the rest of the lineup still having 850, right? 850, BR1 Dynamics, XC, etc. So that's the engine offering for XCR this year.
Okay. One thing that when you guys were doing your media presentation to clowns like me that you spent some time on was kind of helping us define who's the VR1 person, especially with Dynamics, and who's the XCR person. Expound on that a little bit. How are those two people different?
Dynamics is an incredible suspension system. And the most amazing thing about Dynamics is the range that it has. It is dynamic, right? That's where the name comes from. It does a bunch of different things. It can change what it does on the fly. And so Dynamics covers a much wider range of short track riders than a mechanical suspension can, because that's what it does, right? It's got comfort, rally, extreme. It can adjust all 4 shocks on the compression side from nothing all the way to full stiff, right? What that opens up for us is the ability to make XCR a little more specialized than it was in the past. When we think about those two riders, Dynamics is what we call our high performance trail sled. That's the best trail sled we make. It handles the best on the trail, no matter what the trail looks like, whether it's your in Itasca tight sweeper or tight twisties and it was just groomed, or you're on the Bill Nichols in Michigan, right? And it's Sunday afternoon and it's 3 foot holes, right? The Dynamics can cover all of that, and it's going to handle way better on trail corners and over jumps and stuff like that. We think about Dynamics internally as a rally car, right? You watch how a rally car can slide and fly through the woods on berms, jumps, gravel turns, whatever it is. That's how Dynamics works. It's all about handling. It's the best handling trail sled we make. XCR is over here, and that's the trophy truck. It's got big tires, big shocks, right? A trophy truck, you're not going to take that around a Formula One course, but when the holes are huge and you want to go fast and you need the durability, that's what the XCR is set up to do. The other part that we talked about, and I use examples, is the personality, right? Dynamics is set it and forget it. We're in charge with Dynamics. We design the Dynamics calibration. We tell the system what to do. The rider gets to pick comfort, rally, or extreme, so they get to provide some input of how they want the system to kind of work and start. But that's it. They can't change the valving or the how the logic responds in the Dynamics system. Some people love that. They want to just set it, forget it, and ride their sled and enjoy it. But then we all can think of somebody in our riding group who likes to tweak and tune and wants to run all the different shocks, and they put a different spring on this and they turn this shock up at this time and they want all the adjustment and they want to be in control. And that's what XCR is. It's a top shelf mechanical suspension, right? All 4 shocks are full 2-inch bodied shocks with high low speed compression. That's not something you can get from other brands unless you're buying their purpose-built race sled from the race department, and we'll snow check an XCR, right? So it's there for those riders who, personality-wise, too, they want the big performance, but they want to tweak, tune, be in control. I use the example of my neighbor James, who has ridden with you guys a fair amount over the years. He's not a Dynamics guy. He wants to tweak and tune and adjust it, and he loves telling you about the spring rate change he made and how he did a little more preload on this shock, and that's what XCR is there for.
Yep. Very good. So again, looking at the chat here, we got people asking for fan-cooled sleds. We have people asking for wedge chassis sleds.
Wedge chassis.
We all love our various memories
Yes.
we have with various machines. But the fan-cooled thing brings up a thought, and I've heard counter arguments on this plenty over the years, because we sit here and we breathe heavy over the boost and over the 9R, and we get all lathered up about it. Is there still room in this sport of ours for a let's not say a fan cool, but for a 500 liquid, or are those days just those sleds aren't going to sell?
That's a really good question. Our 550 lineup, which is fan cooled and is still a ton available at dealers and a part of our lineup, is a heck of a snowmobile for the price it is compared to the rest of the sleds. Our 550 lineup is mostly under $10,000 at the dealership right now, US, which, given where the rest of the snowmobile pricing is at, that's an entry point.
Okay.
So there's certainly still a position for that. We sell a fair number of them. Some people really do appreciate the fan-cooled nature of it, right? Especially folks that are riding on minimal marginal snow conditions. You go to Alaska and they love that thing, right? That's one of their favorite sleds in Alaska. So there is a space for it. We talk a lot internally about is there a place for the Indy 500, which I think you're alluding to a little bit there.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that there could be. But the way that the snowmobile market has evolved and kind of the position it's in makes it challenging at this time. But I would say we're always evaluating not just how do we keep going bigger and faster, but how do we provide better snowmobiles to more people. And the Voyager lineup that you saw for this year is that, right? It's not bigger and faster. They're cheaper than Titans, and but they provide a better solution, we think, to more snowmobilers that might not have otherwise had a good snowmobile in the past. So we're always evaluating those. I think that there's definitely an opportunity. And like I said, on the true entry side of it, like our 550 fans are a heck of a snowmobile. They have electric reverse, electric start, decent amount of power, a pretty competent chassis, a couple of cool accessories, and they're a pretty good deal at the dealership right now.
Yeah. And that is the toughest part that I've heard from every manufacturer over the years, is when less expensive snowmobiles are built, they typically go to dealerships and sit there for a few years, whether you're talking Neos or Evos or
Mhm.
blasts or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
it's a difficult thing because we all know that price is a factor, but at the same time we
Yep.
also know that cool stuff sells. So it's a difficult situation. So again,
Yes,
our
it
guest
is.
again is Nels Eide, the snowmobile product manager from Polaris. We're going to cover one more segment before we let you go. Let's talk mountain sleds for a bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot of mechanical changes there, but you created a new package. Talk about what a limited is.
Yeah. So for mountain sleds this year, so it's the SnowCheck exclusive limited edition. Um, we have been on the gas leading the mountain segment for quite a while now. When we look back, just you go back to just 2019, right? In order, 2019 we launched 850, and then we did the 36-inch forged front suspension. 2020 we came with Chaos. 21 we came with the updated Quick Drive 2 and the new 275 track. Then we launched Matrix and Boost. Then we launched 9R. Then we did the 325 track. Then we took 8 pounds out of the sled last year. So the limited edition is really what we call a celebration of how far the RMK has come and the coolest RMK that we could build. What it is tactically is you get a Pro or Chaos 9R boost. So our top of the line model, right, with the suspension package and engine of your choice. Some pretty cool colors and graphics that are real chrome graphics, which actually took a surprising amount of time to make work on a snowmobile.
Yeah.
But they look awesome out in the snow, especially on a Bluebird day. And then 3 new accessories. So the Brandt Edition front bumper, the HD rear bumper, and then a new handlebar bag. So really key, really well engineered accessories that really improve the performance and experience of the snowmobile when you're out on it. So the limited editions will be limited. We'll build them for SnowCheck orders, and they're just a fun celebration of what the RMK is. What I will say though is we like to say on the RMK, the product line, that innovation comes standard. The RMKs are incredibly high performance machines on their own, and especially when compared to the competition as well. Our RMKs are still the lightest sleds in the industry by a fair ways. Every RMK comes with a fully forged front end, a belt drive, a short cooling system, coil-over rear suspension, and like I said, they're the lightest snowmobiles out there. So we like to say innovation comes standard on any RMK that you get, and we're excited to keep pushing them into the future and have a cool limited edition for this year for SnowCheck.
Very good. Well, I do want to ask you one more question. It's, I guess, not snowmobile related, but I understand it's something that was near and dear to your heart originally. Big news also this week from Polaris that the Timbersled is being folded.
Yeah.
I remember for several years there, we would sit through the snowmobile presentation with Team Polaris, and they would talk for 25 minutes about what was new in snowmobiles, and then 35 minutes for what was new in Timbersled, and we would be told over and over again that it's the fastest growing segment within power sports, not just snowmobiling. And now all of a sudden it's stalled out. First of all, how do you feel about losing Timbersled?
Yeah.
But then second of all, what happened to the snow bike market?
Yeah. What I would say is, first and foremost, it was a very difficult decision. It
I
was
bet.
not a decision that was made quickly or with a short-sighted view by any means. Obviously, I can't share specifics, but the snowbike industry was exploding. It was. We were telling the truth,
Yeah.
and it has through the last handful of years, really even before the last 2 seasons, been on a bit of a decline and is quite a bit smaller than it was at that time. Um, the other piece of it is that our the kit business doesn't totally align to the rest of our what we're set up to do at Polaris. I guess I would say I have to check the press release for what the official line is, but we're as a manufacturer, we're we're the world leader in power sports, right? We're a huge player in snowmobiles. We're the #1 leader in off-road vehicles, and so we're set up to do large scale production. And with the way that the snowbike industry had in the market specifically had evolved, it just became very challenging for us to continue to support. What I will say though, and you mentioned it, the first one of my first assignments actually when I joined the snow team way back when was Timbersled marketing, and I remember going out there and meeting the team, Brock Boland and Cody Telford and Josh Leonard and all the guys out at Timbersled. And I remember going out there thinking, I don't really know about this, but we'll try it. And after I picked my bike up out of the snow about 40 times that day, I think,
Okay.
But after I got it figured out, it was great fun. And as a company, we invested millions and millions of dollars into snow biking. The engineering and the innovation that we put into Timbersled very clearly pushed the whole industry forward. When we look at where the players have gone. So we're very thankful to the team out there and all the dealers that we've had and all the partners and ambassadors and athletes. And we're very proud of what we've done with Timbersled, the innovation that we pushed into snow biking. But unfortunately, with the market where it's at and kind of our long-term strategy, had to make the decision to cease production out there.
Yeah, it's just so incredible because you guys command such a big market share in the snow bike market, or Timbersled did, however you want to look at it. And then to have the big player disappear, not the small players, is just really kind of unique. It would be, all of a sudden, I don't know, General Motors stops building cars. Well, I guess General Motors doesn't have that big market share anymore, but yeah, it's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and we were an outlier in the snow bike world, right? It's smaller manufacturers, and then us. But like I said, we're extremely proud of what we've done with snow bikes, and I personally have had a lot of fun working with that team and meeting a bunch of awesome people in the snow bike world I never would have met otherwise through working with the gang out of Timbersled. So.
All right. Well, now a final question before we let you go. I promise not to keep you all night, so we'll just do it this way. So, Mr. Nels Eide, you have been thoroughly embarrassed in the snowmobile industry. You will never work in the snowmobile industry again. But we're going to give you one snowmobile, and it's the only snowmobile you can have to ride for the next 3 years. What snowmobile is Nels Eide snowmobile to ride for the next 3 years? You only have one.
So I love trail riding, but if I had to pick one, I think it's got to be a mountain sled.
Yeah.
And my mountain sled of choice is a Pro Boost 155 with a 325 track. That's my favorite. So I'd have to go that one. And in our in midnight blue. Midnight blue. Okay. That would be my color.
So is that the one that I popped up on the screen here a little bit ago? I think it might have been. Is that midnight blue?
That's steel blue, but very similar. I do like a good dark blue, but I had a Pro Boost or my 72 Colt. That's close. Okay. I do love my Colt, so it's close.
We'll let you keep your Colt, even though you did get run out of the snowmobile industry in this scenario. Okay. So we'll be kind that way.
Good deal. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, get back to work, young man. We appreciate your time, and we will undoubtedly still see you a few places yet this spring.
Absolutely.
Coming down to the races at ERX this weekend by chance?
Yes, we'll see you there tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
We're going to let him go. Thanks, Nels.
Appreciate it.
Pitch him into the back room. Once again, you are watching Snowgoer Live. We are sponsored by Arctiva, maker of a complete line of snowmobile outerwear. You need your jackets, bibs, boots, gloves. I wore some of their base layer even at our recent road reports. It's called Regulator. They can be found at arctiva.com. We're also sponsored by Z1R, maker of a complete line of helmets. You want full face, you want a motocross style, modular, they've got them all. You can see them all at z1r.com. And we are also sponsored by Gates with their G-Force belts for snowmobiles, for side-by-sides, for ATVs, for just about anything with a belt drive. Gates has the belt for you. So with that, we're going to transition to our second guest, our good friend, Mr. Brett Richter, who's been sitting in the back room urgently waiting. There he is. How are you doing today, Brett?
I'm fantastic, John, but I'm a long ways away from you. So things are great here.
So let's talk about that. We got a guy from Ironwood, Michigan, who last weekend was in Beausejour, Manitoba, and now you're in Nevada?
Yes, I am. I'm out here visiting my grandson. I didn't get to see much this winter, and spending some time with him. My wife had spent a few weeks out here this winter to get out of the snow, and she's ready to come back home. So I flew out here to spend some time with my soon-to-be 4-year-old grandson, and then we'll Saturday driving back to the great upper Midwest, which, by the way, is loaded with snow.
Yeah, how much did you get in Ironwood? What's the word on the street?
16 inches in Ironwood.
Nice.
Some places as much as 20, 21, depending on the snow belt. I know the Marquette area is up in the low 20s as well. So the whole edge of the Upper Peninsula up there in northern Wisconsin just got pounded. So it's going to be some great, late season riding conditions up there.
And what I've been hearing all year, and the few times I went up to the UP this year, I kind of experienced it, that a lot of the snow so far this year has been lake effect, which is fun. It's powdery, but it doesn't really set up right. Everyone was waiting for a quote unquote system storm. Well, this was a system storm, right? This should pack up really nice.
Absolutely. It actually started with rain, which wasn't the best start to
Yeah.
it. That makes the initial layer of snow that heavy, wet stuff. So when it hits the ground, it gets covered by real snow. It ends up freezing and really makes a good solid base. And then the snow that sits on top of it packs really well when they go over it with the groomers and the trail riding stuff. So it's going to add a really nice base. The temperatures are cold enough at night for the next week to really let it set up. And like I said, it's going to be some great late season riding up there.
Very good. So the reason we're having Brett Richter on today is because he's a trained meteorologist. He's going to give us the weather. No, wait. The reason we have Brett Richter on today is he is our oval racer insider who has been chasing the oval racing circuit around really around all of North America this year. Although you didn't get to all the Canadian stops this year, but it wrapped up in Beausejour last weekend. Let's first talk in general terms. What was the vibe at Beausejour? Were decent crowd, racers in good moods? What was the vibe?
Yes, the crowds were actually really good up in Beausejour this weekend. It was their 63rd Canadian Power Toboggan Championship, and that's 63 consecutive years they've been doing that. So it's really quite a feat up there. From a racer perspective, I shared this with a couple of racers and found it to be true. When I was up there in December talking to the racers, they were all excited about the upcoming season and really hoping Mother Nature was going to provide track places for them to race. And here we are, the 1st and 2nd of March, and like, oh, I can't believe we had to race this much. It was constant. So careful what you wish for. You just might get it. So there was some fatigue, not only in the teams, in the drivers a little bit. You could just see it kind of in their eyes and their demeanor. But still, one heck of a race weekend up there, John. For people who haven't either been to Beausejour or watched the live stream coverage, I mean, a lot of venues do great stuff. But boy, the people up there at the CPTC are really working hard at trying to move the sport forward.
Let's talk about that live stream coverage for a while. That Cool Down TV broadcast was good on so many levels. As far as just being able to watch it live, not having to pay for it, frankly, is a nice treat as well. But then all of a sudden we've got you as a pit reporter. Did you ever in your life think that you were going to be a pit reporter?
No, and I still don't think I am.
Well, you did a pretty good job.
It's one of the gaps that when I was talking with Chris Seymour from Cool Down TV and we were talking about doing this, it just feels like it's a gap that the general public, when you're live streaming, just doesn't have access to. So when a sled leaves the track, you wonder, why did it leave? Is it going to return? Is the driver okay after an incident where he comes off the sled and maybe goes into the hay bales or something like that? Yeah. So really the intent is to try and make the live stream experience more full circle. So you kind of get a beginning and a middle and an end to a story along the way. So, and that's really what I try and do. I can't get to everybody. I can't get to all. Just there isn't enough time really in the broadcast day either to do all that. So yes, I pick and choose a little bit, and I hear some of that. The comments going, "Geez, why didn't I hear about somebody in an F500 class or a heat or whatever?" And it just isn't practical for me to get all that done.
Yeah. You ever have anybody who just you want to go up and ask them on camera what's going on? They're just like, no, get out of here. I don't want anything to do with having my mug on TV.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of the things I've learned from my years with some of the race series is that the racers are there to race. They're not there necessarily to be on TV, and they're not necessarily there to talk to other people. So usually I can ask them straight up, is it a good time? Are you willing to talk? Do you want to talk? And if it's no problem. I'll walk away, but I'll come back an hour later. And typically by then the situation's kind of resolved enough to say, hey, I'm willing to say something, or here's what you can tell me on my behalf. Or if there's been an injury, sometimes it's a family member that wants to just come on and say, hey, rider so-and-so is actually going to be okay. He's getting checked over. This is what we think is going on, and just kind of sharing some information. So it's kind of a mutual respect I feel like I've developed with a lot of the race teams to make that happen.
Very good. Getting some comments in the chat here. We got it looks like a Julie who says, love seeing Brett. We got a Chris who says, being able to fill the fans in between the races is awesome. And another Julie, same person, says, you did a great job. Frankly, I texted you during the middle of the races and told you how much I was enjoying the coverage. And even, it's been a couple of years now. You've been doing when we got the plow breaks, you got the interviews with racers, and you and I have talked in a previous iteration of Snowgoer Live here about how it's awful nice to put a face on for fans to see what these guys look like instead of just that's a blue helmet and that's an orange helmet. As many times as you've interviewed some of these racers, are you still learning things about them? Is it the repeat people, or what are you learning?
Yes, actually, it's kind of interesting because in the beginning, when you talk to somebody and interview them, you try to pick up the basics of them. You want to know where they started, how they get along,
Yeah.
class they're in, what their interests are, and then you deal with people like Matt Gady and Gunnar Stern and Blaine Stevenson and Justin Peterson and some of those people that have been around for a long time. And now I'm starting to understand things about how they think when they're driving and what their driving style looks like. And
Yeah.
so if you can inform the audience and say, hey, if you see this coming from a driver, understand he's picking and choosing these nuances in his race game that I don't think regular people would simply understand. So,
Absolutely.
of course, the time, I'd love to expose new faces to the sport through those interviews, but I also think there's a big value in dealing with individuals who are known to the sport. But then let's get a little bit more in depth. Let's dig a little bit deeper.
Yep, there's a reason that the NFL channels interview more quarterbacks than offensive guards. And the guards are just as important. Not taking anything away from the guards, but yeah, there are some faces that are always the faces of their sport, and they need to be in the coverage. So I get it. So let's talk about the overall Pro Star Cup Tour. Blaine Stevenson comes out, rips through the first 6 races and wins all the Saturday races. Didn't always win the Sunday races. It seems like for a while there, Gunnar Stern was winning a lot of the Sunday races and taking the big trophies home from places like Eganville or Valcourt or whatever. But Blaine builds up this big lead. By the time we get to Beauchageur, is everyone just kind of acknowledging if this guy even makes the final, the points race is over?
Well, with the new point structure, Blaine was 140, I think 142 points in front of Gunnar going into that. And Gunnar was in second. A third was Danik Lambert, and I believe he was 180 points or so behind Gunnar's. So Danik didn't have a shot at Blaine for sure. But had Blaine had some sort of catastrophe in one of the heat races and not made the final, there was a legitimate shot that Gunnar could have gone over him. So Blaine needed to get through the heats, needed to get into the final, and then needed to be, I don't know, 5th or better, somewhere in that ballpark, to be sure that no matter what happened, everything was going to be okay. So was there drama? Not really. But there was an outside possibility that something was going to happen. So, but those two, I mean, Gunnar and Blaine, Skidoo, Polaris, Illinois, Minnesota. There's so many things there that are just ripe for competition, and they're probably not the best of friends on the track. I don't think that's news to anybody. So to see that rivalry go on throughout the season, and really they raced really well against each other.
Yeah,
just kind of what the sport needs a little bit. You need a Dale Earnhardt kind of a Bobby Labonte kind of thing. Where you got some competition and some faces to put out there. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, our guest is Brett Richter, our oval racing super fan here on Snowgoer Live. There was drama though at Beauchageur in that we had he's won some finals before, but as of recent time, a new winner. It was awesome to see Justin Peterson collect a checkered flag on Saturday.
I don't know that he's won a Pro Star Cup Tour final.
Well, maybe not a Pro Star. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Because he was. Justin's one of the he's a quiet guy, but he's knowledgeable. He's got kind of like that Matt Gady-esque kind of sense to him, where he knows what he's doing. And I went up to talk to him after the race, and he's like, I'm kind of speechless here. And so, and what a moment. His wife was there with his child, and mom, dad, the whole ball of wax. They were there, and just great to see him step up and do that. He's been one of those guys that's been fast a lot. Needs to put 2 and 2 together and make 4, and has been coming in at like 3.75 or 3.8. And but that race, he's consistent. He rides the bumps. He's got speed. When Gunnar went down with a motor issue, Blaine lost a cylinder with about 2.5 or 3 laps left. So they were kind of struggling at the end there, and Justin was ready to pounce, and pounce he did.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes people say somebody, lucked into a win, but you've got to be there to earn that win. And, and yeah, there's always, heck, you look back at some of the championships Blaine won, it was, geez, this happened late in the race and different things went on. So, at the end of the day, the man holding the checkered flag is the person holding the checkered flag. And he earned that. And I was absolutely pleased as punch sitting in front of my TV here in suburban Minneapolis, seeing that thing go down. That was really cool. And that's taking nothing away from Gunnar and Blaine. I like them both, but it's always fun to see somebody who a victory means that much to,
and even people like Reed Klinger coming in third and Travis
Yeah.
McDonald second. Those are faces that are relatively new to the podium in a lot of situations. So as much as Justin was elated by his first place finish, Klinger and Team PDF, and his brother Dane was a place behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought third and fourth place could mean so much to somebody? But boy, it certainly
Yeah.
up and headed home after the weekend.
And what's neat about that is, every sport needs fresh blood, and all of a sudden these Klinger boys have come on, and you can see a pretty darn bright future for them. This is like watching a young Nick Van Stridunk or something in his first year. All of a sudden it's like, whoa, these guys are competitive. Don't take anything away from them. But you had also mentioned Travis McDonald. Great to see T-Mac back on the podium. Awesome to see.
Yeah, and he did well on Sunday as well, back on the podium again. So back to the Pro Star Cup Tour. I think the other part that's really exciting going forward is the young talent that's coming in. We saw Colton Abraham on a Pro Light up in Beausejour. We saw Brandon Christensen on a Pro Light.
Okay.
We saw Gus on a Pro Light. And we saw Hannah Westland on a Pro Light. So there's new faces coming up in the Pro Light class. Jocelyn Rathke's already into champ. And she was running Pro Light earlier this season. So the numbers are actually looking good in that direction. So I'm kind of excited about where that's going to go.
Is there any talk among any of the veterans? Are we expecting anyone to hang up their leathers, so to speak?
Not that I've heard. Blaine told me that he'd signed a new contract with Polaris for 3 more seasons, so he's hanging around. When I talked with Gunnar Stern, he said he doesn't have any plans to go anywhere. I actually asked him in his interview, if you happen to see it, how he knows when the time is coming to be done. And he said, I don't know, but it's not yet. So he's got at least a season or 2 maybe left in him, I would think. Tom Olson, he was really aggravated by the thumb injury this year that he couldn't finish the season. So I don't see that stopping him from coming back. He's not ready to be done. Wouldn't surprise me if maybe he starts to limit his schedule a little bit. Okay. It's a vintage and champ and F3 and all that kind of stuff and driving all over. So there may be a little bit of a limited schedule coming up for him. That's just my guess. I don't know that to be true. But other than that, I don't think there's anybody out there that's really ready to hang it up.
Yeah. And there's also racers out there waiting in the wings. I mean, I remember, earlier this year before Eagle River talking to Colt Delandria. Well, actually Colt Delandria's dad not talking to, but over social media, and just about the fact that he was planning on racing this year, but what kind of a leftover hand injury kept him on the sidelines. And so we could even see some faces like that resurface too. So oval racing is just such a cool event to watch, and also just a cool group of people that make up the sport. It's always good to see the numbers do well and see more of the personalities come back.
And there's a number of them in the junior sprint class too. Look at Derek Meyer, who won the Decker race. I would expect, that unless he gets taken in some other direction, the champ is probably an aspiration for the Meyer family. Derek and Ben have both shown early on that they've got the ability to race. So natural progression would put them in that class in a couple of years.
Okay, you and I didn't discuss this before the show, so if I'm putting you on the spot, or if you don't know, just wave me off, I guess. The Decker Triple Crown, great concept. I loved what they were doing there, promoting an up and coming class and doing different things. Put some real money and prizes behind it. The end was anticlimactic because we had a technical challenge. Do you know much about what parts were being challenged or what went on there?
I do. There was a cylinder that came into question in the sled that crossed the finish line first. And there's a lot of rumors about the cylinder. Ultimately, the cylinder went to ISR, and ISR ruled that the cylinder wasn't deemed illegal. So that took the first place sled out of the mix, moving Derek up to win. I know, talking to Derek's father, he said, we don't want to win that way. Nobody wants to be crowned a champion under a cloud and have that type of stuff going on. So it's one of those things where it's just hard on the sport. It's just there was some question from the technical side, and there's some questions from the racing side. So it just wasn't clean and cut. I'd have much preferred that the sled went to scale and it was 10 pounds over and everybody could see it.
Yeah.
Then it's very clear.
Yep.
it's just one of those things. So yeah, just an unfortunate moment. So hopefully it doesn't tarnish what the Decker family did for the sport, and hopefully what they try to do moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like they're pretty behind what they were doing there for a multi-year deal. Some, I think those guys will stick around. And still, it was still, all the photos got online of Mr. Sarna showing up with his briefcase of $10,000 bills and stuff like that. And so, I think we can still celebrate a championship. It just got a little bit stalled out, but it's worthy of that. Related to the rules, going to go off on a short sidebar here. When I first started at Snow Week magazine in '93, I remembered you could never trust the results until like midnight, because all these sleds had to go through tech, whether it was the old ISOC cross country circuit, whether it was the SWDRA drag racing circuit, whatever it was. It seemed like there was always somebody in trouble with tech. And frankly, while that made it somewhat irritating sometimes that the guy who crossed the finish line in second place was thrown out or whatever, I liked it that it kept racing pretty fair. And I've been somewhat shocked over the years that absolutely never comes up in a lot of race circuits anymore, that the tech has gotten soft in some areas where everybody always passes and Lord knows what they're running. So there's an argument on each side of having a tough tech. I mean, that's there to keep things fair, but
Right.
yet you do hate to see, especially wins, get hung up by such things.
Right. Actually, I was talking with one of the racers up there about tech issues, and his comment was very well made. He said, at this point in time, when you're dealing with Champ and F3 and some of the better divisions, even F500 now, you don't want that reflected back, especially when you're dealing with sponsors.
Yeah.
Take a look at some of these pro Champ teams, that have big sponsors on Wall Brothers, FXR, places like that. They don't necessarily want to sit there and go, oh, geez, we sponsored driver so-and-so and he got caught cheating again. Yeah. So are they on the edge? Oh, absolutely they are. But in order to win and be competitive, I think you have to be. But also tech has gotten so much better. I mean, they can drop a probe in the fuel tank and know if your fuel is legal in almost a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Or in stroke or check so much quicker.
Yeah.
The guides for the stud patterns and all that type of stuff is just it's right at their fingertips, and they can tip a sled on the side and check your studs right there in your carbides, and it isn't up for discussion or argument at that point in time. So I think those things have really moved forward and helped the sport a lot.
Yeah, but there's an old saying in racing: there's cheaters and there's losers. There's you do have to be right up against that legal edge in so many different ways if you're going to be the fastest person out there, and that's just endemic in any sorts of motorsports. But it is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. There's one thing, John, about the CPTC I'd like to throw out there. They tried something new this year, and I don't know if people caught it. They tried with the order of the race day. They put they call them sport classes first thing in the day. A lot of the junior classes, the women's F500, F500 Sport, some of those other things, ran those first, and then set a start time for what they call the pro classes. Champ, F3, they ran Outlaw in there, they ran F500, and then they would usually throw in something else just to kind of mix up an ATV or bike class, whatever. They told me at the end of the weekend that their live stream viewership actually jumped 20% when the pro classes were scheduled to start. They also saw an increase at the gate, and shortly before that at the bar. So,
beautiful.
Because people have often talked about how do you drive the sport forward, how do you move it, and by telling the audience that, hey, you know what, these classes are going to run early in the day, and then starting at this specific time, we're going to run these other classes. Now, did it cause some work at the pro class level? Sure. Travis McDonald burned a cylinder down, and in 20 minutes he had to have that sled back.
Yeah.
I talked to Jeff McDonald, his dad. They had 5 guys in the trailer. He said at one point I had to turn around and tell everybody, you got to move or you got to leave, because they needed to concentrate on the work because their time frame was. But at the end of the day, they worked really hard for 3.5 hours, and then their day was done. So it seemed to be a big win for the fans and the venue.
And when you see it in so many other forms of motorsports, whether it's NHRA or me, I typically, if there's snowmobile racing on and I'm not riding, I'm watching the snowmobile racing. The sound of running engines going in circles drives my wife crazy, but that's who I am. But with snowcross racing, now I know time specific. This is when I got to watch. I remember, again, back in the old days when we had Snow Week, a lot of times the finals would be at freaking midnight or at 5 p.m. And then the next week would be at 2 because it just depended on if other races got stalled out or if there were more entries or whatever. To have a nice clean plan where people can plan around, okay, this is when I'm going to, we all know when the Super Bowl is going to start. It has a start time. So what time is the Pro Champ final? That should have a start time.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. And I'm glad that they took that on.
Yeah. Good step forward, I think, for them. They seem to be pleased with it. The racers, for the most part, were pleased as well. There was actually like almost an hour break between the end of the sport classes from the day and then the pro classes. And you know what? They filled it with, I went out, we did a live driver interview on the front stretch and talked to the crowd out there and took some questions. They had some interview time. Prepped people, just, the concession stands were ready for that. So it really seemed to work out okay.
Drivers on unicycles, jugglers, mimes, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, spaghetti eating contest, all those things are coming.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, while we wrap it up here, Hope's looking pretty good for a national circuit again next year, I hope.
That's what I'm hearing. So,
good.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So I know that the USSA banquet's coming up on March 22nd, and hopefully they're getting some ducks in a row and working on that again and getting things organized. So hopefully we'll hear something real soon on that, but I don't really see a reason why it shouldn't happen.
Yeah. It's another one of those mixed bag things. You'd mentioned that how many weeks in a row they ended up racing, and it is taxing. And traveling from Eganville to Valcourt to all over the place, that's not easy. But it brings the sport in front of so many people. Right. And hopefully, we used to have a lot of racers from the East that competed in our sport. Now, we've got 3 Quebecers that were at several of the rounds, and Sabrina, Philippe, and Danik. So we definitely had some, but it would be nice if that would get going again in the East and we could see more folks. And ultimately, it's more fun if you got more people chasing trophies.
Yeah, end of the season up there in Beausejour, there was 22 champs entered, and there were a couple notables, right off the bat that weren't there. So I think 25 at the end of the season race for that class, it would have been really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. But yet, you look at the other side, and there were only a very small handful of people that hit every single round, and right. So you got to balance that out and see how the math works. So it's not easy, but
yep.
Yeah, beautiful.
Nope.
So what is Brett Richter looking forward to doing once now that the snowmobile oval racing season is away? Other than time with this wonderful grandchild of yours, you got some fishing plans this summer? Or?
3 weeks from tomorrow, Mr. Prusak, at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Brett Richter is retiring.
Nice. Very good.
Yep.
Well,
I owe my wife and my family a little bit of time from the life that I've taken away from my work career when I was especially young and involved. So we're going to take the month of April and go be vacation nerds and just get out and go do some stuff and have some fun. And then once I get back in May, there's some time to fish. There's some time to go play golf. I got a new golf shirt. It's blaze orange because I spend so much time in the woods. So,
well, orange is the best color either way. So you gotta be happy with
that. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to just getting to do some fun things again. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And I have a grandson, like I said, I just haven't seen him enough. So that's gonna have to come to the forefront as well.
Yep, got to fix that as well. Yep. All right, well, thank you for all you do for Snowgoer, for our show here, for the coverage you put on our website, but also for all you do for the sport. So if we could clone you and put 3 of you in every different aspect of snowmobile racing, we could bring back Snow Week. But except have an online version. But love your passion. Keep it up, my friend, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, John. Always good to talk to you, and let's hope for a great off season, even better race season next year.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, Brett.
Yep. Thanks.
And we send him away. Again, that was Brett Richter, our special guest who covers the heck out of oval racing for us. So again, you are watching Snowgoer Live. We're a show Thursday nights at 7:30 here on YouTube and Facebook, where it's live, where we can take live questions and things like that. But you can also get caught up. You can watch the video afterwards online. We make a podcast version of this. So if you're interested in snowmobiling like we are and like to talk all things sleds, keep tuned in to Snowgoer Live. We are sponsored, as always, by Arctiva, maker of a complete line of snowmobile outerwear. You can find them at arctiva.com. We're sponsored by Z1R, maker of a complete line of snowmobile helmets and also helmets and gear for motorcyclists. That can be found at z1r.com. And we're sponsored by G-Force with their G-Force belts for power sports equipment. find them at gates.com. So let's now talk about kind of what's going on. So again, I kind of referred to it earlier. We are asked on a truly daily basis, well, multiple times a day, what do you know about Arctic Cat? What are you hearing about Arctic Cat? What's going on at Arctic Cat? I see our friends at Super Tracks / Snow Tracks TV were onto the same thing we were onto yesterday, but they were smart enough to put it on the social media. Yes, we can confirm that some people from Argo, or Argo's parent company, were spotted at the Arctic Cat factory in Thief River Falls yesterday. That's a good sign. They must be interested. They must be doing something. The one thing to remember is that Argo is owned by something called Ontario Drive and Gear, and that is owned by a private equity company. So it's like something called Aparian Management and Falcon Investments or something like that. So it's the money's got to make sense. You got big money guys behind it. They've got to do their math. And so, but there's definitely some due diligence being done at some level on that. We also heard from an extremely well-placed source that at the beginning of February, there were 3 players that were talking to Textron and who received presentations from Textron about the Arctic Cat division. So whether it ends up being Argo / Ontario Drive and Gear, whether it ends up being one of these other companies, there's interest in Arctic Cat. That brand has equity, and that is one of many reasons that I'm confident that we're going to see Arctic Cats in the future. As I noted earlier, they had a machine that was brought out to an industry photo shoot for the International Snowmobile Manufacturers Association. That was confirmed by officials from the other manufacturers who were there. We're also told that they, updated their membership in that same International Snowmobile Manufacturers Association. So they're doing demo rides. They have prototypes. Doesn't sound like a company that's shutting down permanently. It sounds like a company in transition. So let's pray that all that stuff is right, because they're definitely worth saving. This weekend, as I said, we got the big snowcross race. Big snowcross circuit returns to where I'm based here in the Twin Cities with a round at ERX. It's on to Eagle River, Wisconsin next weekend. So that's race circuit is really heating up now as they wind down their season, but still three weekends to go. So a lot going on, a lot to watch. There's also new sled tours going around where you can see the 2026 from 26s from Skidoo or from Polaris. Check online for their schedules. A lot to see there. The ordering period is opened up. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, considering all the inventory in the field, but there's also some pretty cool snowmobiles that people are going to jump at. So we'll see how that goes. As much as anything, though, and Brett referred to this with the big snow they got in Ironwood. I know big snows have fallen elsewhere as well. Really love to encourage you to get out and ride, because, again, there is absolutely, positively no sport that is as fun as snowmobiling. I've done all motorsports in my life, enjoy them all, but there's something truly, truly special about snowmobiling. So get out and enjoy it while you can. We got the long days coming up. We got the warmer conditions. If you can make the drive, make the drive. So again, John Prusek here, Snowgoer Live. Join us next Thursday night. We've got some new and exciting guests lined up. But until then, signing off. Thanks for joining us, everybody.